And now for a little more reflection on the Grenfell Tower fire in London. That, of course, was the tragedy that took nearly 80 lives last week. Horrific, preventable tragedy, a tragedy that told us so much about not only the thinking of the current government in power in Great Britain, but the thinking of the neoliberal financial elite that has run the world economy for far too long, and that must be overthrown on the national and international levels. This is a tragedy that is beyond ability to describe in certain ways, but perhaps some of the loss can be put to good use, at least if we can make this a wake-up call, if we can make the fire at Grenfell Tower into the funeral pile for neoliberalism, because that's what it needs to become. It is time to put to bed once and for all the austerity economics that has infected leaders of both parties in this country, leaders of both parties until very recently in Great Britain, and leaders of the major multinational financial institutions around the world for decades. And by that I mean, of course, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and other institutions of that ilk. Now, in a rational, sane, and balanced world, the public's will, the democratic forces of governance, would control the way that private sector finance operates. But in our world, too often it happens the other way around. We create institutions that are actually governed by the financial sector itself to its liking and to its profit. Now, the Conservative Party in Great Britain is the ultimate fruition of austerity economics at its worst. Now, austerity economics is the philosophy that says when economies are struggling, let's cut taxes for the rich, let's slash government spending for everyone else, let's make sure we save every nickel or every shilling we can, and in doing that, somehow there is a magical theory called, as part of mainstream economics, that says magically wealth will appear out of that. Now that has never happened as far as we know at any point in human history. There's a large body of economic research showing, in fact, that what you need to do when economies are struggling is spend more, that you have what's called a multiplier effect, that for every dollar or pound spent on government services when they are needed brings more than that back in growth and revenue. So why doesn't that happen? Well, it does. Why don't we do that rational way of thinking? This is John Maynard Keynes. This is not new stuff. As Paul Krugman told me when he was on this show, it ain't rocket science. So, okay, we know it's not rocket science. Why don't we do it? We don't do it because too many people find it in their financial self-interest not to do it. Because as long as we keep tax rates low for the wealthy are satisfied. And as we know in this country, thanks to a study conducted at Princeton University, we know that the wealthy and corporations essentially already control our democracy. Everybody worries that Trump will kill democracy. Well, it's already dying. So yes, we have to resist Trump, but we have to rebuild democracy. We have to get money out of politics. We have to get money's influence, the financial sector's influence, out of institutions like the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund. The people who died at Grenfell Tower deserve no less. Now, you've probably heard this, but in case you haven't, just a quick reminder. Those 80 souls, 79 souls, died to save about 5,000 pounds in added expense. That's what, $6,500, $7,000 to do a fireproof version of what they call cladding on the outside of the building. But as we discussed earlier, the rich folks in the neighborhood didn't want to see that. It was ugly, and there was money to be saved. Now people are dead. Well, now England has decided, Great Britain has decided to replace all the cladding on all the other towers, but that won't bring anybody back. And while we're at it, we also need to address inequality. Grenfell Towers is in one of the most unequal areas, neighborhoods in the world. It is in a small micro neighborhood that's in the lowest fifth of income in Great Britain. You walk a few thousand feet in any direction, you're in the highest income bracket in Great Britain. That needs to change too.